Imagine building the most powerful technology on Earth, then handing the keys to the government before you even show it to the public. That's exactly what OpenAI just agreed to do. The company behind ChatGPT will now let the United States government inspect its most advanced AI models before they ever reach you. Think about that. A private company, valued at hundreds of billions of dollars, voluntarily inviting federal officials into the room before launch day. It's like a car maker letting safety regulators test drive a secret prototype months before the public sees a single advertisement. Why would a company famous for moving fast and breaking things suddenly slow down and ask permission? The answer reveals a massive shift in how artificial intelligence is being treated, not as a cool app, but as something closer to nuclear material. This deal means a government team gets early access to test whether these systems could be dangerous before millions of people start using them. We're talking about checking if an AI could help build weapons, launch cyberattacks, or spread mass disinformation. For years, AI labs operated like the Wild West, racing to release first and apologize later. This agreement flips that script entirely, and the timing is no accident. Over the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly what OpenAI agreed to, who's actually doing the reviewing, and why some experts are quietly worried this could backfire in ways nobody's talking about. Stick with me, because the details are far stranger than the headline suggests. To understand why this matters, you have to rewind a couple of years. Back in 2023, the US government created something called the AI Safety Institute, tucked inside the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Don't let the boring name fool you. This was Washington's first serious attempt to get a handle on a technology even its creators admitted they didn't fully understand. Think of it as a crash test lab, but instead of slamming cars into walls, they stress-test AI models to see how they break. The problem? For a long time, it had no real teeth. Companies could cooperate or simply not. OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google all signed friendly voluntary pledges, the kind of promises that sound great in a press release but carry no legal weight. Now OpenAI is going further, formalizing a process where government researchers get hands-on access to frontier models before release. To grasp the scale here, consider that training one of these top-tier models can cost well over $100 million and burn through enough electricity to power a small town. These aren't weekend hobby projects. They're among the most expensive objects humanity has ever built, and they're getting more capable every few months. The government's worry is simple. If a model that can write working malware or design a bioweapon slips out into the wild, you can't recall it like a faulty toaster. Once it's downloaded and copied, it's everywhere forever. So how did we get from polite handshakes to letting federal agents inside the lab? That's where the story takes a turn. So what does this review actually involve? Let's pull back the curtain. When OpenAI finishes training a new model, before flipping the switch for the public, they hand a version to government evaluators. These specialists run what's known in the industry as red teaming. Picture a group of professional hackers and scientists whose entire job is to trick the AI into doing something terrible. They'll spend weeks asking it, in clever, disguised ways, how to synthesize a dangerous chemical, how to break into a power grid, or how to generate convincing fake propaganda at industrial scale. If the model coughs up genuinely dangerous answers, that's a red flag that has to be fixed before launch. Here's a concrete number to anchor this. In previous evaluations, testers have thrown tens of thousands of adversarial prompts at a single model, probing for weaknesses across dozens of risk categories. It's less like proofreading an essay and more like a military stress test. The evaluators also check something subtler called capability uplift. The question isn't just can the AI answer a scary question, but does it give a malicious person a meaningful advantage they couldn't already get from a search engine? If the AI just repeats what's on Wikipedia, that's one thing. If it acts like an expert tutor walking a bad actor step by step, that's a genuine national security problem. This distinction sounds academic, but it's the entire ballgame. And here's the twist nobody expected. The reviewers don't actually get to block a release. Stay with me, because that detail changes everything. Let's make this real with some examples of what these evaluators are hunting for. Take biosecurity. Earlier model tests famously checked whether an AI could guide someone through the steps of recreating a dangerous pathogen. Not vague science fair stuff, but the kind of specific, sequenced instructions that turn a curious amateur into a genuine threat. One evaluation reportedly involved biology PhDs grading whether the AI's answers were accurate enough to actually work. Then there's cybersecurity. Imagine asking an AI to find a hidden flaw in a piece of software and write the code to exploit it automatically. A skilled hacker might take days. A capable model could, in theory, do it in minutes and do it thousands of times at once. That's the nightmare scenario regulators are testing for. There's also the disinformation angle. Researchers feed the model scenarios like, rate me 500 unique social media posts impersonating a real political candidate, each slightly different to dodge spam filters. If the AI happily complies, you've got an election manipulation machine in a box. These aren't hypotheticals dreamed up by paranoid bureaucrats. Every single one maps to a real capability these systems have demonstrated in controlled tests. And here's where it gets interesting. The very same abilities that make these models terrifying in the wrong hands are exactly what make them miraculous in the right ones. The model that could design a poison could also design a cure. That double-edged nature is the heart of the whole debate, and it's why getting this review process right matters more than almost anything else in tech right now. Now let's compare OpenAI's approach to how the rest of the industry handles this, because the contrast is striking. On one side, you have Anthropic, the company founded by former OpenAI staff who left partly over safety concerns. They've leaned hard into what they call responsible scaling, publishing detailed policies on exactly when they'll pause development if a model gets too dangerous. On the other side, you have companies racing to open source their models, meaning they release the full system for anyone on the planet to download and modify freely. Once that happens, no government review on Earth can put the genie back in the bottle. So where does this OpenAI deal sit? Somewhere in the messy middle. It's more cautious than throwing models onto the open internet, but far softer than a hard legal requirement. Think of it like food safety. In one country, restaurants are inspected and shut down if they fail. In another, chefs simply promise they washed their hands. This agreement is closer to the promise than the inspection. Here's the number that captures the stakes. There are now at least a dozen organizations worldwide capable of training these frontier models, and they're spread across multiple countries with wildly different rules. The United States can review OpenAI all it likes, but it has zero authority over a lab in another nation. That's the uncomfortable reality. This is a national solution to a global problem, but here's what most coverage gets wrong. The real value of this deal might not be control at all, but something much harder to measure. Let me explain. So if the government can't actually block a release, what's the point? This is where the implications get genuinely fascinating. The real prize here is intelligence, in both senses of the word. By getting early hands-on access, government scientists build up something they desperately lack: deep technical understanding of how these systems actually behave. For years, regulators were flying blind, trying to write rules for technology they'd only read about in news articles. Now they get to touch it, break it, and learn from it months ahead of the public. Think of it like a building inspector who finally gets to walk the construction site instead of just reading the blueprints. That knowledge compounds. The second implication is about trust and precedent. Once the most prominent AI lab in the world accepts government review, it becomes the expected norm. Competitors who refuse suddenly look like they've got something to hide. It's a clever bit of pressure that achieves through reputation what laws haven't yet managed through force. But there's a darker reading too, and this is what keeps some experts up at night. What happens when the same government that reviews these models for safety realizes how powerful they are for surveillance, for military planning, for influence? The line between protecting the public and quietly acquiring a strategic asset is razor thin. A tool built to catch dangerous AI could just as easily become a tool to control it. And that tension between safety and power, between protection and ownership, is the open question hanging over this entire arrangement. Here's the thing that changes everything about how you should read this news. So how should you, watching this at home, actually make sense of news like this when it lands? Let me give you a practical framework you can use on every AI announcement from here on out. First, separate the promise from the mechanism. Whenever a company says it's committed to safety, ask one simple question: who can actually stop them if they break that promise? If the answer is nobody, it's a pledge, not a guarantee. In this case, the government reviews but can't veto. So file it under pledge with extra I's attached. Second, follow the access, not the press release. The most important detail in this entire story isn't the friendly language about cooperation. It's the simple fact that government researchers now get models early. Access is power. Always look for who gets to see the technology first, because that tells you who really holds influence. Third, watch what competitors do next. One company acting alone is a story. 3 companies following within a month is a trend that reshapes the whole industry. Keep an eye on whether Google, Meta, and Anthropic announce similar deals, because that's how you'll know if this is a genuine turning point or a one-off publicity move. And fourth, here's a quick gut check you can apply instantly. Ask whether the change makes the technology safer for you specifically, or mainly safer for the institutions involved. They're not always the same thing. Run any AI headline through those 4 filters, and you'll cut through 90% of the hype in seconds. But the biggest question of all is one we haven't touched yet. So here's what this actually means for you and what to watch for next. We're living through the exact moment when artificial intelligence stops being treated like just another app and starts being treated like critical infrastructure, the same category as power plants and water supplies. OpenAI letting the US government review its models before release isn't really about one company or one deal. It's the first visible crack in the old idea that tech companies should police themselves. Whether that crack widens into real, enforceable oversight or quietly seals back over once the headlines fade is the story to follow over the coming months. For you, the practical takeaway is this: the tools you'll be using next year are being shaped right now, in rooms you'll never see, by people balancing breathtaking opportunity against genuine danger. The more you understand how those decisions get made, the harder you are to fool, whether by breathless hype or by lazy panic. So keep asking who holds the access, who holds the veto, and who actually benefits. Those 3 questions will serve you for the entire AI era ahead. This is one of the most important shifts in tech right now, and it's moving fast. If you want to stay genuinely informed instead of overwhelmed, follow for daily AI news. Because tomorrow there'll be another headline that sounds simple and turns out to be anything but. I'm Riff. Keep your curiosity sharp, keep your skepticism sharper, and I'll see you in the next one.